Studio by Professor Dick Howard, who is a US political expert and also the author of the book Shadows on America from Kennedy to Trump, Les Ombres de l'Amérique de Kennedy à Trump. That's the book he's written here. Thank you very much indeed for coming to see us, Professor. Let me start by asking you, as far as the whole impeachment process is concerned, what does today's vote actually change?
It changes the political dynamic in two ways. On the one hand, it makes it difficult, if not impossible, for the Republicans to say, you're doing a lynch mob. You're ramming this through. It's a witch hunt. Because now it's going to be public, open hearings. And secondly, insofar as these are hearings called officially now, around the question of impeachment, those people who receive subpoenas, who are called upon, not invited, but called upon to testify, will now have to testify. And that means you're going to have a lot of witnesses, starting, for example, with the former National Security Advisor, John Bolton, who, as you know, was fired by Trump, or, as he says, he quit before Trump could fire him, whichever way. His testimony will be extremely interesting. And then, finally, all of those testimonies that have taken place before, notice why they were done in secret. They were done in secret to avoid the testimonies from the testifiers from getting together and concocting one unified story. Now these people who have testified privately, and there are notes taken about it, those people will now be called upon to testify publicly.
Okay, so it changes quite a lot. And what do you make of the fact that not one Republican voted in favor of taking this whole process forwards? What does that tell us?
It's, as a American, it's terrible. It shows a split country. On the other hand, I'm old enough, notice the gray hair, I'm old enough to remember the first impeachment of this modern century of Richard Nixon. And I remember how strongly united the Republicans were at that time. And what these public hearings will do, the Democrats hope, is what the public hearings around Nixon and Watergate did. They're going to change the climate of opinion. The jury, after all, in this, is the jury, the acting jury, is the House, which indicts, and the Senate, which eventually convicts. But what counts is public opinion.
And isn't that a bit of a risk on the part of the Democrats, given that we're about to enter an election year? Because, I mean,
yes,
if the whole, Republican Party is right behind Donald Trump, his key supporters are right behind him too, doesn't this just have the effect of galvanizing their position of support for the president?
That's what Trump's advisors are telling him. But I think there are two factors to take into account. One, what the Republicans are counting on is not simply that Trump will be indicted, which eventually he could be impeached, is called, but also that in order to be convicted and removed from office, there have to be at least 20 Republican votes, because you needed 67 votes, 2/3 majority in the Senate. Of the elections coming up, there are 33 senators in play. 23 of them this year are Republicans. That means that they have to think twice if public opinion begins to shift, if the tides begin to change. And that's, I think, where the big question is going to come in.
Okay, let's just put the clock forward to a later stage. If the House eventually votes to impeach President Trump, that sets up a trial in the Senate. But of course, the Republicans control the Senate, meaning that the removal of President Trump is not just unlikely, it's more or less impossible.
I wouldn't say it's impossible, because I would have said the same thing 50 years ago in Richard Nixon. Remember, the Watergate affair was a little rinky-dink thing. What's at issue here, I think, though, is a broader question, a question of constitutionality, because what he's being accused of ultimately is violating the basic principle of the Constitution, which is the separation of powers. Remember that the Democrats didn't want to impeach Trump. Nancy Pelosi, the leader of the House, didn't want. She kept her troops in line. She refused continually. And now she's finally driven to the point where it seems that the pressure coming from within her party is such that she can't not do it. And what you have then set up is a clash between, on the one hand, Article 1 of the Constitution, which establishes the powers of Congress, Article 2, which establishes the powers of the executive, and the question of the independence of the Justice Department, of the judiciary. So you really have a broad constitutional issue. And I dare say that my hope is that maybe out of this, not that we will somehow become united again with one another, but we will be united around the Constitution, around the values of a democratic republic.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for coming to see us.